Do you like my shirt? Hello, how goes it? I need to talk to somebody about this movie because I feel like my friends are tired of hearing me talk about it. At the time of this recording, Challengers came out 2 weeks ago exactly, and I've seen it a couple of times, and it seriously has such a grip on me. It's absolutely crazy. I was super excited for this movie to come out. I watched all of the press junket interviews. I saw every outfit, every continent, and was seriously eating those interviews up. And I really do feel like for me, the movie lived up to the hype. I definitely have my thoughts and critiques and whatever, but that's mainly me being nitpicky. But I really just wanted to make some art and talk through my thoughts on the movie, as well as my art process for making these drawings and these posters that I came up with. So that's what the purpose of this video is today. Also, can we have a moment for my phone case?
She's really good.
Isn't that so cute? If you follow me on Instagram, which you should be, I did a collab with Michaels last week, but I just did this cute little DIY making my phone case. So check it out. I really am a stan of this movie, I have to say. I already can't wait to watch it again. The first time I went to a small theater, and I didn't realize until I saw it the second time that the volume was super low. I saw it at a Regal the second time, and I was like, oh my gosh, you can hear the crack of the tennis ball on the serves. I was missing background music. I was missing background dialogue that just didn't come across in the first viewing. So I'm really glad I've seen it more than once. And I know Zendaya hates Art's character, but I'm sorry. I'm an apologist. We'll talk about that later. With all of this said, let's get into the video.
Zendaya, Josh, Mike. Actually, let's do that again. Great start.
So just to get this process started, I wanted to get all my ideas out on a sketchbook spread. So that's what I did. I took 30 minutes just to write down everything that I was thinking, all of the jokes that I've been seeing on Twitter, TikTok, tennis terminology. I did play tennis in high school, so I actually do know something about this sport. And yeah, so the Duncanator, which was the poster that was up in the cafeteria, and there's people in the audience watching Tashi play wearing those t-shirts. Art apologist, I saw this a ton, and I have to say I do agree with the sentiment. The Tashi Duncan fan club, I think this was probably the first one, because when we were in the theater and her and Patrick get into that fight in her dorm before she has her injury, and she's like, "You're not a part of my fan club," my friend BA busted out laughing. She thought that part was so funny, which it is funny, but she was the only person in the theater that laughed, which made it more funny. But yeah, I thought it would be cute to do something with Tashi's face in the middle. And I'm really kind of just sticking to simple iconography here, a heart. It is what it is. It's not groundbreaking, but it's cute. She just wants to watch some good effing tennis. And then also the part with Zendaya dancing and comparing that to Timmy dancing in Call Me By Your Name, because a ton of people have made that connection. And I wanted to do some kind of I think carousel on Instagram was the original idea, where you would start with Timmy and then swipe and see Zendaya, or vice versa. And then what else? I thought I could do a digital painting of the three of them just sitting on the edge of the bed, and maybe just right above it, "I love tennis." And then I wanted to do a reimagining of my own version of the official poster, the one where she's looking through the glasses. I do think that poster is cool, and it's definitely got an 80s vibe. I forget what movie it's referencing. I saw a picture of it. But I was the only thing I wish was that it really captured Zendaya's frown that she has throughout the entire match. She's really, really good at that, that face. And, also the I Told You shirt. I don't think I ended up making anything with this, but yeah, I think I just wrote that down because I wanted the shirt. But yeah, so this is what I started with. And then I moved into my actual sketchbook. My immediate reaction after seeing this movie was I just felt so pumped up. I was immediately I have to see this again. And I think it's funny because you leave the theater feeling the same way that Tashi does, because she finally sees them play some good tennis. And you feel so pumped up. I also am so obsessed with the score. I think it's been said ad nauseum at this point. Everybody loves the score. I really think the choice to make it so loud was very funny. It's obviously an intense choice, but I think it paid off, and I think it really adds to the height of, the conversations that they're having. And I like that it plays when they're playing tennis, but also plays when they're having these intense dialogue back and forths. And then the other thing is I didn't realize this would be so funny. Like, I definitely thought it would be more drama than anything because the marketing was so love triangle forward, and it is a love triangle, but it goes in all directions. And, they're exploring the romantic relationships, but also a lot of this is about like the friendship that is between Art and Patrick that is, a little bit romantic. Well, a little bit, but like there was just so much more to it. And I really feel like the marketing didn't capture that. Like, I don't know. This movie also made me want to get back into tennis. I have played tennis since the 5th grade, and I was super burnt out after high school. Like, my roommate would try and get me to go in college because she played intramurals, and I was always like, no. And over the years, I've just played when I'm at home and stuff, like casually, but I really want to like join a tennis club or something because it was very fun to me to watch a sports movie about a sport that I actually play, because I'm usually not into sports movies because like that genre just doesn't appeal to me. But I feel like the tennis in this is so much fun. Another reason this movie really, really worked is because the script is so strong. I love when something is mentioned early in the film that, they follow up with later. It creates this consistency, and it's kind of like you plant the inside joke in the beginning, so that way there's like a huge payoff in the end. And this happened a few times. Obviously, the most primary example of this is the signal that he does during the final match to let him know that he was with Tashi the night before. But I think a few other times were when they bring up that they had their mutual crush when they're in the motel room, and they say something about how she got injured and could never play again the next week. And I was like, oh, like that foreshadowing. And then also when Patrick tells Art he hopes his grandmother has a stroke, and then she does. And we find that out in the scene where Patrick and Tashi hook up in Atlanta, and she's like, yeah, it was his grandmother's. She had a stroke. Like, I just love little seeds like that. And I know there's more. Those are just the ones that I remember. There's a lot of talk about like who the villain is in this movie. And I mean, Zendaya has said a bunch that like it really is codependency, the movie. Everybody is guilty, they all are very flawed, but you love all of the characters. Honestly, I think the real villain is that girl Anna that Tashi beats in the beginning because she's racist. And it also makes me mad that, that scene in Atlanta when she's sitting there at 3 a.m. drinking scotch and she's watching them talk about that girl because they're like, there's no one else who can like take her out of the competition. She beat her easily when she was in her prime before the injury. Just made me upset. So that girl is the real villain. And then I think the hero of this story is the line judge lady who gives Patrick her Dunkin' Donuts sandwich. She was so funny. Every time I've seen it, I think she just cracks me up because she feels like a real person. She's kind of oblivious, but just like there to be nice and like obviously really loves her job. Some of my favorite moments in this are the moments between Art and Patrick. I just feel like their chemistry romantically as friends, like all was just so good. Like the scene where Patrick comes to visit Art at Stanford and, note that he comes to see Art first, even though he's in a relationship with Tashi, and they're eating churros in the lunchroom. But that part where he pulls the stool in, my whole audience was like, ooh, like it was so funny. Everybody was like giggling and swinging their feet in the theater. But that, and then also like whenever he comes to his practice and he's like chasing him around the tennis court and showing that first scene of them together winning their match and they were like rolling around on the ground together, like that is not it's not giving bestie, it's giving in love for sure. But like all of those moments were so good and they really felt so natural. I also really liked the Applebee's scene with Art and Tashi, and obviously that's kind of the beginning of them not rekindling, but just like becoming friends again. And I wish that we had seen more of like the positive aspects of their relationship, because I just have a hard time believing that like it really was never Art. Like Art was never the one. Like I think, there's a reason she ended up marrying him and having a kid with him and whatever. Obviously she's pursuing her dreams through him, but I would have liked to see more of that dynamic. Okay, so I thought Zendaya did a really, really good job in this movie. I was, to be honest, a little bit nervous about how the acting was going to be because If we're being real, up until this point, I feel like Zendaya has played the same kind of character. Like, there's always like a cool element to it. Like, you know, Euphoria, she's a mess, but she's still cool. In Spider-Man, her MJ was like a bit grungier, just more like sarcastic, not the typical MJ character that we were used to. And then in Dune, she's like this badass, like warrior person. So there's always this same kind of element. Oh, and I didn't see Malcolm and Marie, so I cannot speak to that. I'll leave that there. But I was a little bit nervous about how she was going to do in this because I knew that they were playing like a wide range of ages. And I'm going to be honest, I do think her performance, for me, excelled in the younger scenes. Like, you know, when they meet her at her party, especially in that motel scene, it all felt so natural. Like, it felt like this cool girl was like picking on these dudes who were obviously like gaga over her. All of that was so believable to me. I think the less believable part was like seeing her as a mom. And maybe that's just because we're the same age, but I know she's trying to break out of that teenager role. And I think this is a good, like, she did really, really great. I'm just like excited to see her expand and do more of these roles so that I like will fully buy into it. I really loved all of the styling. I think the bob was such a bold choice for her, but I think it really, really worked. It definitely helped to age her as well as her style. Like, she definitely just seemed a lot more like refined. It was definitely giving like rich woman. So I think all of that really helped to sell this, you know, older character. And I would be remiss not to mention all of the looks for this press tour. They absolutely killed it. Law and Zendaya are, you know, such a force. I really loved every look. I do wish, in the same way that she did the coordinating outfit with Timmy for Dune, I wish she had done a coordinating outfit with both of the boys because it would have been so cute. Like, I can just imagine it. But I don't know, you know, I'm sure Law is expensive. He's not just like styling for free or whatever. He's not just doing group coordinated looks. But that is absolutely something that I would have loved to see. And again, I am biased here. I did play tennis, like I said, but I also do love a tennis skirt. I really love the tennis aesthetic. So I was very excited to see all of these looks. Oh, and I also have to mention that Zendaya was an executive producer on this project, which I think is so cool. Like, get that bag in front of the camera, behind the camera. Everything that I've heard about her work as a producer on this has been really good. So I just think that is so awesome that she's really expanding the types of roles she wants to do in her film career. And while I'm at it, I just want to say, we all know that Zendaya could easily be a model, but I think it is so cool. I mean, she could do the singing route as well, but I think it's so cool she wants to focus on film. All of the other Disney girls that come out want to be pop stars, and we have so many great Disney pop stars, but I really like that she was like, no, I want to be an actress. That is so cool. I love her. So I saw Mike Faist in Dear Evan Hansen in 2018, so I have known who he was, but that is the only thing I've seen him in. I have not seen West Side Story. Oops. But I've heard he was really good in it, and I actually do want to watch it. But I just need y'all to know I am absolutely an art apologist. I mean, he's guilty just like the other characters, but I feel like Zendaya was coming down too harsh on his character. I get the snake allegations. I'll give her that. But how old was he? 18? Just trying to be messy in his friend's relationship. Now, how old was Tashi sneaking out to go sleep with Patrick? And then coming home to find your husband not in the bed? I was like, oh my gosh, where is he? And then we see him he's fallen asleep with their daughter. Like, I was like, how heartless? Like, I'm sorry, you're not gonna convince me that he is the villain. He was clearly so in love with Tashi, and honestly, more men should be this down bad for their women. I saw a TikTok of it, but let's bring back pathetic men, please. I also really do think Mike Faist has a really great tennis player look, and apparently Luca had him put on 30 pounds for the role, which I think made him more believable as a pro athlete because he was so fit. And I think that's also the like extra layer of muscle in those scenes. I was kind of like, wait, why do I find him attractive? It's all the tennis garb. Like, Mike Faist is definitely a handsome guy. But this movie, I was like, oh, it is giving like hot tennis player. And again, all of the characters are so messy, but I do feel like Art's character is the only one that feels like he's evolved in some way. Like, Tashi is definitely stuck like wanting to be a part of the tennis game. Like, she's still wanting to live out that dream however she can, and that is through art. And then later, we realize she might want to coach Patrick because Art wants to quit. But it just feels like Art's character, he has just evolved past that. Like, he is over being a pro athlete and he just wants to like have a life. And the way that Patrick presents that information to Tashi in the alleyway is like, it's a bad thing, which, I mean, to her it is, but he just really feels like he's grown up. And with his whole speech to Patrick in the sauna, he's like, I'm too old to play these games. Like, I'm not doing it anymore. But then again, his character was pretty manipulative and he is just kind of content with being Tashi's lapdog. Like, Patrick was not going to stand for that. And also, he knows that they slept together once. So, like, while they were engaged or wherever their relationship was at in that point. So while I do sympathize with Art, he has put himself willingly in this position. So how bad can you feel for someone like that? And really, he should not have been surprised when she was like, if you lose tomorrow, I'm going to leave you. Even though everybody in the theater gasped, but that's so on brand for her. I don't watch The Crown, but the clips that I've seen of Josh O'Connor in it are insane because he seems like completely a different person. And I get it, like, that's what acting is, but him as Patrick in this is just so arrogant, so snarky, so funny, and like so aggressive. It's really funny to watch him in real life because he's just so like sweet and talking about his garden and watching Ratatouille. The way that man had great chemistry with both Art and Tashi was insane to me. Like, it was so much fun to watch. He's obviously the fire in Fire and Ice and the one who really doesn't put up with Tashi's attitude. He gives it right back to her, which I think is why she really liked him. He's like, I'm your peer. I'm not in your fan club. He's like, I'm not going to sit back and be Mr. Tashi Duncan, which is what she wanted from a partner. And in her words, she wanted a partner who didn't suck. But, he gave it right back to her, which is why they have this aggressive dynamic where they're, yelling, spitting in each other's faces, and then making out against a car in a parking lot at midnight in a tornado. I do think the whole dynamic of Patrick being this rich kid who's kind of cosplaying being poor was very interesting because when we're first introduced to his character and we see him get denied at the hotel and then going to sleep in his parking lot, and like, you really feel bad for him, but then later when it's revealed that he's a rich kid, it's kind of like, And they also do have that quick shot of him like scratching his inside of his elbow, which is alluding to possibly like some kind of drug problem. So I don't know if it's this noble thing where he's like refusing to take money from his parents, or like maybe there's more of a drug issue there and that's why they've cut him off. Like, we don't really get into that, but I found it interesting that they just touch on it, but it's never really explored because I just think that makes his character so much more complicated. Also, I just saw a behind the scenes clip of Josh O'Connor like going through the motions of a tennis player, and he's really kind of fumbling through it. And the guy's like, okay, try it again. Keep your eyes up. And it is so funny. I'm just like, these people are actors, because as good as Zendaya is at mimicking dance moves, I'm like, no wonder she cracked her knee, because she was like just jumping all over. I definitely agree. I think Mike Faist had the most believable, they say this multiple times in their press junket, but like, he was the best player, and I think you can tell. Also, to go back to Zendaya's knee injury, I have not been able to look at the screen when it happens, even though you can still hear it, and I'm sure the sound is worse than it looks. But yeah, I have not been able to watch that part. I just keep my eyes down, or I put my hands in front of my eyes. But I did come across a picture of the model that they made of Zendaya's lower half to shoot that part, and I laughed at it for like 10 minutes because I was like, what the heck is this? But it makes sense they would have to do some kind of weird little replica like that. I don't know. I love behind the scenes stuff. So for these first two posters that I did, I started in Procreate and made portraits and then brought them into Illustrator and Photoshop. I really am trying to figure out how to seamlessly blend my illustration style with my digital work. And so far I have not been able to do that, mainly because I don't really have a specific digital style with my illustration. And sometimes I don't feel like drawing something in real life and then like taking a picture of it and then using it in a digital work. I'm still trying to figure out how all of that comes together for me and trying to work through my feelings of using illustration as a crutch with my design work, because I usually like to make something really nice and render it and then design around it, which that's not a bad thing. I just feel like I've gotten comfortable, so I want to try and push myself as a designer, especially with this YouTube channel. So the poster I'm working on now is the Tashi Duncan fan club, and this came from that scene in the dorm room with her and Patrick. And when I started this one, once I added her photo in, I was kind of like, oh, it's giving like memorial, like she passed away or something. So I definitely had trouble getting this one started. And I'd seen a lot of like trendy tennis posters that use a scripty font and this kind of serif font, which again, this is out of my comfort zone, but I'm using it because it's trendy. And I'm trying to figure out, like, do I like this? Or have I just seen it done and that's why I'm doing it? I don't know. I'm kind of just trying to make things and see. I think my main issue is that because I design for my job and, I work with one brand specifically at work. So I have a strict color palette, a strict font. I mean, literally I use one font all day, and I've gotten so in the habit of creating for my client at work that I don't really explore design outside of that. So I feel like my design skills have kind of plateaued over the last 5 or 6 years since I've been in the corporate world, and which is again why I feel like I use my illustration as a crutch. So here I'm not using any illustration. I did try and draw that picture of Zendaya, and it looked fine, but it didn't look good enough for me to want to use it. So I decided to just use the photo and then figure out a way to edit it in Photoshop. And right now you see me tweaking with layers, and I really do tend to go for the same things every time. I go to the filter gallery, I'll throw on a grain or the halftone I like. I wear out like the gradient map. I really do stick to the same kinds of things in Photoshop, so I want to push myself to explore outside of that. Also, I'm curious what the designers of the internet, of YouTube, of Instagram use to screen record their videos, because even screen recording this, my computer crashed so many times. And I'm wondering if there's a setting that I'm missing just to make sure that I'm not recording the highest resolution that's going to slow my computer down, because even transferring these files so I could edit them, it was just a huge headache, and I'm really trying to figure out this YouTube thing. As far as why I chose this photo of Zendaya, I really liked her expression here, and one thing that I love is that Zendaya still has her natural smile. I saw a tweet that said the best thing about challengers is there's no veneers in sight, and I thought that was so funny because it's true. And Zendaya, one of her teeth is like a little bit shifted one way, and sometimes she does this half smile where it pokes out, and I thought this was a really good instance of that. And it's a little bit goofy, but she still looks really pretty, and she looks really sweet in this photo, but I wanted to kind of juxtapose that with other images in the background of her like screaming like on the court whenever she's like, come on. I also decided after fiddling with the filters that I wanted to turn her grayscale and do a overlay layer and then paint underneath to kind of repaint the image. I thought that could be fun to try. I've never tried it before. And so here I am filling in all of the parts of Zendaya's photo. I decided to go with 2 photos of her on the court in the background, kind of ghosted, and then 2 photos of her in the blue dress scene from the party because I thought she looked really pretty. And I still feel like it's kind of giving someone like memorial photo, but I don't know. I think I ended up liking how this one turned out, but it was definitely a process and one of those that I kind of had to force myself to work through, which is really hard because I usually don't do that. If I'm not feeling it, I just stop. But I really wanted to make something that I actually liked. On to the last poster, I wanted to do a mashup of Timmy and Zendaya dancing in their respective Luca films. So we're starting with a Luca Guadagnino film in the middle in this scripty font. Again, this is out of my comfort zone. I don't use scripty font. If I have to pick a font that I like, it's usually something chunky and bold, and I'm trying to do things I don't normally do. So here I am changing some of the characters to the ones with like more exaggerated tails. And I already really liked this bluish purple color in the background. It feels like the shirt that Timmy's wearing in Call Me By Your Name. It feels like the dress that Zendaya is wearing in Challengers. So that was a natural thing that I wanted to do. And then I'm also figuring out the spacing here. I don't even have any kind of like tips or tricks for spacing on things. I like zoom in, I zoom out, I squint, I try and just see how things feel overall when it comes to text spacing. And the one of Zendaya that they've been using in all of the promo, like that specific photo, I don't really love, so I don't know why I pulled that to work from first. And also the sizing was off, like where that photo cuts off makes her a different size than Timmy's photo, and I wanted them to be the same size and kind of overlapping each other. So this is me trying to make it work, but Timothy's was perfect. You stay right there. But yeah, the overall idea for this one was to be kind of dark and look like there was movement happening, just like feel like a vibe. And I was just trying to play with filters and see what I could come up with per usual. I sometimes feel so uninspired by the filters. It's because I know I'm not getting the most out of them. Like I use them in the same way every single time. So I did also try and drop in an illustration of that photo that I did of Zendaya, and I absolutely hated it. I loved the sketch, but when I tried to make it digital, I brought it into Procreate, it looked god awful. And then the same with Timmy's, like I could not get these illustrations right. So I did try and add that as a layer underneath that photo to see if there was like something cool happening there. There wasn't. And I changed it to a screenshot from the movie, which I think works so much better because you can see more of Zendaya's face and she really looks like she's actually dancing. It feels like it fits better with the photo of Timmy. And I apologize, this is not a tutorial. I really don't remember what I did to their photos. I definitely just stacked filters on top of each other. And then I went in and added Call Me By Your Name at the top and Challengers at the bottom. I think I really struggle with my digital work too. I like for my stuff to feel handmade in some way or have texture or have a lot going on. And I also added a glare going down the middle of that Luca Guadagnino text in the middle. But this was where things were getting annoying because my computer kept running out of disk space, so I kept having to like close out of things, save things, delete things just so I could get it to save to my computer. So luckily it did. And this is how all 4 of the posters turned out. I actually really like all of them, and I had to push through because I wasn't really sure where I was going with it. And my confidence as a designer is not super strong, at least in this field of being creative and off the wall. I can do corporate stuff any day, but I'm trying to get back into being more experimental with my design. So I hope you all will stick around for that journey. If you want to follow me, I already mentioned I have Instagram, I have TikTok. I just made a Twitter. I have 0 followers, and honestly, I kind of love it, but feel free to follow me. I've just been tweeting random things, which I guess is what Twitter is for, or excuse me, X. Yes, please follow me on other platforms. I'm having severe footage and computer issues. So once I get that worked out and I get a workflow established, I hope to have a consistent schedule with this. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and go watch Challengers. I'm so ready for it to be on streaming, and I will see you next time.